This is because they worship these same gods, the cherubim. The Allah or Rab is actually the same as the Anunnaki, the Anakim who sends down his Milkan or Molech, known as Malaikat or the angels. In the Quran, in the Islamic religion, they ask the Muslims to kill animals, draw blood. They have feasts and festivals where they have to slaughter animals, burning flesh in open fire, all in the name of their Allah or God and his angels known as the Malaikat. The holiday Eid al-Adha, the Feast of the Sacrifice, entails thousands and thousands of animals actually being killed for their Allah or Rab. So, and the way that they actually kill the animals, it's like a bloodletting. It's blood running down off the animals, running in the street, because they actually slice the animal at the carotid artery, and that's in the roof of the neck, on animals like camels, and it's actually done on the 10th day of the Muslim month of Dhul-Hijjah, which is the 12th month of the Islamic calendar. So in their pilgrimage, they actually kill thousands of animals, and it's sacrificial slaughter, and they actually used to actually kill their female children at birth as well. So in seeing all these rituals, it stands to reason you have to ask, why would Allah need all of this blood? Why would he need the dead flesh of animals and blood? You know, why would you have all these holidays that there are blood running in the streets and the flesh and killing and slicing of animals' throats? This same Allah is a light fire God. There are numerous passages in the Quran that speaks to Allah saying it is okay to fight and kill human beings. And it's interesting to note that it is okay, according to the Quran, to eat certain animals, but not al-khinzir, or the hog, the swine, or the pig. Just as the Israelites were instructed not to eat the pig. So it's interesting to see the parallels between the two, because you're really dealing with the same religion and the same feeding of the same gods. So Muslims, Islamism, Mohammedanism, by whatever sect or denomination, which is inclusive of that taken on by the new Negroids who converted to the Arabian religion and called themselves, whatever within it. They changed the teaching in order to suit themselves or their race. But still, it all goes back to, no matter what sect, that same Arabian prophet, born under the name Ahmed, known as Muhammad, that sought to appease these bloodthirsty gods. Being that Al-Quran actually was derived from the Jewish and Christian books, all of which are feeding these same gods under whichever name. So even if they claim that their God came in the flesh, like this was claimed by the Nation of Islam, still he came from Arabia and gave them that same book. So they're still adhering to the energies of feeding these same bloodthirsty gods as in traditional Islam or any of the other sects. This can also be said for the 5% nation that also branches for them. This can also be said for the Moorish Science Temple, because the teachings are still rooted out of Arabia. So you're still dealing with feeding the same bloodthirsty gods as in so-called traditional Islam. Still asking them for blood, still asking them for flesh offerings. And this being is supposedly so powerful, why would they need the blood and the flesh offerings? To the point that this being even asked for human sacrifice, as in the case of Abraham's own son in Genesis 22. God, Allah, Alihad, by any name, still asks for a human sacrifice to cook a person as a burnt offering. And you can look at Genesis 8:21 through 22 and Genesis 9:3 through 6. So they ate human flesh and animals to this day. Just as people do to this day, these same bloodthirsty deities ate human flesh and animal flesh. So Psalm Dar Amunabab Rᴇɪlīᴏ Tzīhū has spoken and spoke once again about what is actually done to beings that are seized for the harvest for the world. These bloodthirsty beings in the monotheistic religions promised the subjects of these religions that they would come back for them and take them up in a rapture. So they ask in their scriptures that blood offerings be given, to kill, to put flesh on altars, to show their devotion to this unseen God. And throughout time, even though these practices visually obviously did not continue to take place, those that are devoted to these religions still gave their energies to these bloodthirsty gods with the hope that they would come and rapture them or take them back up. And this happened as of 2000 AD. But again, as we said before, it didn't happen in the way that they expected. Beings were taken starting in 2003 in 2000 back up to their craft to prepare them for 2003 AD. When these beings are taken up in this rapture into the crafts, they have to be cleaned out. So just as when you are preparing any meat dish and you clean your chicken, get underneath the skin, or those who still eat pork and eat chitlins, and they take the intestines of the pig and pick out the defecation or the trash or remnants and things that are in their bodies to eat. Humanoids are prepared the same way. The bloodthirsty gods actually attempted to raise the beings on the earth on clean things in an attempt to have a healthier dish for their menu. However, even though they tried to raise them on clean things and try to prevent them from being diseased, did things to make them taste better and to make their flesh more tender, as found in the books of Leviticus, they still have to clean and tenderize their meat. So once beings are on the big crafts, they're bathed, they're shaven, there's a tube that's put into their mouths, a fluid is pumped in that fills their stomach, and their legs are hung over a machine, and a long tube is entered into their rectum to clean out all the fecal matter, everything out of their intestines, and then the beings the humans are repumped 3 times more with this liquid. There was a tube put in the penis of the male, the vagina of the female, to remove the urine, to clean out the bladder and empty the bladder. And this is done 3 times to make sure that the inner body is cleansed of this filth. Now please note, in the description given, there's no description of anesthesia or that this whole process is being felt. Psalm says, with this process there is much pain felt. So then the cleansing process continues, and the blood is checked to see if it's clean after 6 weeks, because it takes the body 6 to 8 weeks to cleanse and cycle through the blood. All the teeth are removed, all the inner organs are removed, just as you would do with a chicken or turkey or fish or any other flesh someone would eat. Children are actually preferred because their flesh is more tender and they don't have the abuse to their bodies that many adults do by drinking or taking drugs. Children don't have that, so they're actually preferred. What's interesting is when people are encouraged to drink, by drinking alcohol, it actually thins the blood and pickles the organs. So in the preparation process, they continue to prepare the meat just as you would prepare meat to be cooked. And then the bodies are put in big vats and boiled. So this was done in a 3-year span from 2000 to 2003 AD. This is the process that was utilized. In addition to the humans, they were still eating household pets. They were still eating horses, livestock, so it's animals and humans. But mostly, Pākā'anu, or the Canaanites, were the ones being prepared for food. That was the white meat that they wanted. So these same bloodthirsty beings actually gave religion to make their flock, or Pākā'anu, their cattle, their livestock, to live by, in order to make them trust in these Elohim, in these bloodthirsty beings. Many of the offspring of these beings who are on the planet still eat raw flesh and blood. You see many Celtics who are descendants of these beings of the Pleiadians, where they'll eat a plate of meat that's so rare it's red with blood in the plate. That is a remnant of their genetics from being mixed beings, hybrids from the Pleiadians who also came down and mixed in with humanoids. These types of practices are actually hidden in their religions. Just as you look with Esau and Jacob and eating the red porridge, that's actually the consumption of blood. So as Tğᴇ Hᴜᴠᴇsᴛ has been telling us time and time again, particularly in this day and time, we just need to stay away from them. We have to pull away and stay away from them because so many of our people have become so much like them in appearance, dress, everything, really just taking on the image of the beast, that they're going to be included with the harvest for the world. These bloodthirsty beings will not touch African blood because of the protection provided by Panataru, Pasalafu, our ancestors, the overseers. Pāminzāl Nzdar mentioned how whenever you see a Panagaru taken up or have any kind of incidents with extraterrestrials, those extraterrestrials, it's because they're closely related with a Canaanite or a Celtic, and he gave an example. There was a couple from Portsmouth, New Hampshire. It was a Negroid man and a Celtic woman, Betty and Barney Hill, and they were actually abducted in September of 1961 by beings from Zeta Reticuli, and it was called the Zeta Reticuli incident. This is because he was caught up in the Celtic world. So just as now in this day and time, that being caught up gets you on their radar, has been spoken of in previous updates. Pāminzāl Nzdar posed the question, who is Azazel? He, of course, is the scapegoat. And he was supposed to be used to take on the sins of all the world. And he was cast in the wilderness as an atonement for the sins of the people. This goat was just another blood offering. So this is why Pāminzāl Nzdar has told us we do not subscribe to the religions of Abraham, because these are bloodlust religions. You will attract the wrong type of God. This also extends to the bloodlust religions or offshoots such as Yoruba, which is an offshoot of Al-Islam. Even though it has an African appearance, it's still appeasing the bloodthirsty gods. Years ago, we received an update not to eat certain foods, such as cheese, bread, dark colas, and at that particular time, it was explained how they had begun adding blood to food as an additive. Because there were so many slaughterhouses that had blood waste, there were some scientists in Russia that tried to find a way to use it basically to make money. And Pāminzāl Nzdar reiterated this affirmation. The doctor's name is actually female, is Dr. Ludmila Antipova. You can actually look her up on the internet. And she decided to find a way to use blood 12 years ago because she found out that a local meat plant had discarded up to 7 tons of this blood waste per day. 7 tons per day. So she used this to actually reproduce foods such as chocolate. That was the other one. Chocolate, they put it in bagels, they use it in ice cream, and they actually use it in coffee, just to name a few things. Also, sugar is processed using pig's blood. They use the pig's blood to refine white sugar. So all these beings know that the life is in the blood. And when people consume foreign blood, they can be controlled through the blood. So this is what's behind all these blood additives. If you do not have another's blood in you, they cannot control your spirit. So that's why they have their cattle, the Canaanite, eating blood, eating raw meat, and actually giving it a term. Instead of calling it raw, they call it rare or medium rare, but it's raw and less raw. But they make it normal so that people will ingest this blood so they can be controlled. Then, truth be told, Pałᴡ said we still have not only Negroid people, but Nuwaubians who are eating blood red meat after we've received affirmation for years not to eat the blood red meat because of this issue of blood and control. We still have Negroids and Nuwaubians who are drinking, even though we were told about the dangers of intoxicants, which also connects to the blood, as was revealed when we received the genetic His doctrine. When someone drinks, they can fall, open a cut, and with that, sepsis can come in with the exposure of blood or bodily fluids. We still have Negroids and Nuwaubians who are smoking. These are all things that we were told many years ago not to do. And yet still, we're standing here still bringing it forth that this is an issue amongst us. Bottom line, Pałᴡ said, if you are still engaging in these things, you will be added to their lake of fire, also known as a barbecue. Many amongst us and amongst our people have mixed in with them so much, and we've taken on their bad habits of the smoking, of the drinking, of the consuming of the red meat, the music, the way of thinking, their whole life, and that will become your end or death. Many of our race will become their meals because they live their lives in the world of the Celtic. They mix their seed with them. So Pałᴡ also spoke about in the Bible how the Lord and the angels ate flesh. And it also says their offspring will eat it also. In Psalm 78:25 it reads, "Man did eat angels' food. He sent them meat to the full." Another biblical tale that relates to the harvest for the world is the story of Sodom and Gomorrah. They set out to kill people in Sodom and Gomorrah, and he said, yes, they did take them also as food. So they kill humans and they ate flesh. This same God gave Abraham a son through Sarah, and at the same time, in turn, he asked Abraham to kill that son and cook him. He asked him to be a burnt offering to cook for him. So that's the same thing as offering him basically as a plate of food to him. It all has to do with that sweet smelling savor. The gods, the Elohim, ate human flesh. So Pałᴡ, posed the question about, how do they like their meat? Just like when humans have a barbecue, they might have their meat, mesquited up a little bit or with this special sauce. It's the same thing that's going on with the food for the gods. when people smoke, when people drink, all they're doing is seasoning their bodies. Also, he puts forth how in the Bible, if a Christian were truly to follow the Bible, they're presented with a strict diet. And the reason for this strict diet of what to eat, what not to eat, what's clean, what's unclean, is the same methodology as having a farm-raised pig as opposed to a pig in the field. The Bible is trying to get them some farm-raised pigs to eat. It's trying to show them to eat the proper food so that they will be the best harvest. However, as most people do not follow their scripture and the scriptural laws to diet, they're just like, wild pigs to be harvested, but they'll be harvested nonetheless. If you noticed, there's a whole campaign about the other white meat, which we were taught was pork. The reality is the other white meat are the pigs of this planet, which are the albinos, the Kᴜᴜ. And if you notice, all they like to consume is meat with every meal. And they have a very bland diet. Christianity is basically for their people to be gathered like calves in the stall. There's a interesting quote in Revelation 14 through 20. And if you look at verse 15, it speaks of the harvest for the earth being ripe. So some of these beings are actually taking their meals just like as a restaurant where you can, go to the turkey farm and pick out which turkey you want to eat. They're doing the same thing with the Canaanite on this planet. They're watching and they're picking and they're taking it and they're eating it. It's been mentioned in previous updates and it was reiterated about an episode of The Twilight Zone called To Serve Man. It originally aired in 1962, and it's when extraterrestrials come to the planet Earth and they gain the trust of the humans only to eat them, only for humans to become food for the gods. This aired in the 60s, and now we're actually seeing it come to pass. Pałmazal Nazdar spoke of how in this world, nothing is what it seems, but at the same time, it's very clear. And this same time, it's very clear why we need to pull back, give them back their stuff, as he's taught us for many, many, many years, that we cannot get caught up with them. All we have to do is get out of the way. The end for the Celtic it's coming. The harvest is happening. All we have to do is just get out of the way. When you look at the Bible, Quran, this is the guidebook that Christians and Muslims utilize as the guidebook or the guide for their life. But it is a book that's filled with killing. It's filled with people getting, smiting, death, burning flesh. It sounds like something out of a old English novel. I mean, it's very gothic if you really look at it, but this is what someone uses to guide their whole life.